The turning point for me was what happens if you take a chance to genuinely believe in yourself and get rid of that negative dialogue and just be on your own team, and how do you actually just get out of your own way and just be the best version of yourself?
Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Ashley, and today I'm joined by Rosie Popa. Rosie is an Australian national champion rower and Olympic gold medalist. She also holds an MBA from Oxford and now combines her lessons from her Olympic journey with leadership practices to help individuals and teams thrive and achieve sustained success. Beyond her Olympic and professional journey, she has become one of my favorite writers, offering honest reflections on identity and purpose, navigating transition, stepping into the discomforts and unknowns on the other side of sports, something that I personally connect with and where I'm excited to go in this conversation. So, with that, Rosie, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Ashley. It just is so wonderful to hear your reflections, and it means a lot for your kind words. So thank you so much for having me and just being such a big support. It means a lot.
For sure. I'm so excited to chat with you. I feel so honored to have you on as a guest. I also love that we're connecting from opposite corners of the world and that you're giving me hope in tomorrow.
Yeah.
I had to throw that in there. But no, I first learned about your journey on the Two of My podcast with Shane
Awesome.
McCurry, a few years ago.
Hmm.
And you were talking about, resilience and self-worth and navigating self-doubt through your own rowing journey. I learned that basketball was your sport first, and that was my athletic career in basketball. So I was just really connecting to a lot of that. And also just when you were discussing the different pressures that you put on yourself throughout your journey. I wanted to open up with a bit of a loaded question. You've shared that it's the 6.5 minutes that you won the Olympic gold, and that represents 15 years of preparation and dedication and sacrifice, and a lot that people on the outside have no idea about, that we can't see the things that you go through as an athlete for all of those years and the setbacks and pressure to reach that moment on the biggest stage. And so in those 15 years of time, what did you discover about yourself that has played the biggest part in shaping your what's next in life after sport, since retiring?
Yeah, no, such an amazing question to open up. And I think it's so loaded, right? Because there's so many lessons that you learn along the way. And I think reflecting so much of what are these like transferable skills that we talk about from sport into life. But I think the one thing that I really learned during my sporting career, and especially after kind of having a lot of hiccups or quote unquote failures, whatever you want to call it, is actually like the turning point for me was what happens if you take a chance to genuinely believe in yourself and get rid of that negative dialogue and just be on your own team. And I almost like have this concept that I'm like developing at the moment of like the mental efficiency is like, how do you actually just get out of your own way and just be the best version of yourself? And I think kind of over that 15 years, I really challenged my own, I guess, ability that I got in my way a lot of the times, whether that was, not eating enough or having so much self-doubt or not thinking that I deserved it. And then there was a moment in probably 2017 was like, what happens if I just completely show up for myself? And what happens if I'm like unconditionally on my own side? And it really started to unlock things. And I think because you're not coming from this fear-based way of living, it's more of a curiosity, and it was flicking that switch. And now that I'm in the real world and navigating, and it's kind of now the more that I start to scratch the surface of this identity and transition piece, you just realize that you have no idea. Like the more you know, the more you realize that you don't know. And I think when I come to personal challenges or hurdles or different environments, kind of coming from that curious space, not that fear-based of, oh, do I not deserve this? And that's probably the biggest thing for me that I'm transferring from the biggest learnings of my sport career, because I think it makes a really, really big difference, because I think there's just everything comes from a place of kindness and compassion rather than torturing yourself of not thinking that you're good enough, regardless of the result.
For sure. I'm curious in that some of the practical ways that you do that with yourself and leaning in more so with curiosity and not fear. I know that you've also shared a bit just throughout your athletic journey and different journaling and reflection. How much of that do you practice in this way and just coming back into more of an introspective space?
Yeah. It's really, really important to kind of have that introspection. I think in a world where we have so much information flying at us at all angles. And if you think about with work, you've got 3 different screens that you're working with. If you have a corporate job, you've got 2 phones pinging, you've got someone talking. There's just so much going on that you actually don't get a chance to kind of hear what your instincts are saying. And I think something that I realized in my sport career was, in the sport of rowing, you really have to push through those mental barriers and not really listen to your body or your mind. Sometimes you have to do it, or, if you want to row for a country, you only have one choice. So those little instincts and intuitions that are this doesn't feel quite right. Sometimes you just have to push through that because you have no other choice in sport. And I think now, the world is our oyster when we come out of sport, that you can, if you don't like your job, you can change, or if you don't like the country, that you can move. You have so many more options. But I think that comes from really looking deeply of why you're making that choice. And I think especially in the last few years, I've really tried to tap into my instincts and intuitions of going, okay, what feels right? And then if I'm having, a emotive response of something doesn't feel right in the environment that I'm in, I'm really trying to think of as okay, is this the process that I'm in my life of this period of learning that's really, really uncomfortable that I want to get away from? So the actual environment is not suitable. And that's what I'm starting to think with it. It's when I feel really unsettled, instead of, trying to not listen or not sit with that uncomfortable thought of going, oh, okay, what happens if I just get to the other side, and then make a decision from that. So I think the journaling and the kind of reflection is making me really able to not make decisions from an emotive state, rather than processing it and then kind of being patient with the next steps.
As a former athlete myself and having conversations with other athletes as well, there's always this connection of the whole identity piece. I know for me, it's something that I struggled with, where it was learning more about myself outside of the sport that I have always done. And
Mm-hmm.
when I stopped playing basketball, it was that next thing for me. I got into long distance running because I
Mm-hmm.
was I need something that I can,
Absolutely.
prove something to myself, just keep competing. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how I knew myself. It's how I related to others. And then when you step away from that and stepping into new spaces and putting yourself intentionally in new environments, you're learning so much about yourself in that. Some things to me that I've been surprised by that I'm actually interested in,
Mm-hmm.
because you're doing
Mm-hmm.
something for so long. So from
Mm-hmm.
your perspective and the experiences that you've had, what have been some of the surprising things for you that you've learned about yourself that is disconnected from, Rosie Popa, the Olympic gold medalist?
It's funny because I think I was able to kind of get this expedited forcing into the next phase. As an Olympic champion, usually you get the parades and you get the sponsorship deals and you get really kind of these shiny accolades. And I went to the Tokyo Olympics that I think that was delayed. And I think there was an element that everyone just kind of wanted to move on and kind of just pretend that it didn't happen. So, my post-Olympic journey was sitting in 2 weeks hotel quarantine by myself in Sydney. And then I had to come back to Melbourne, which is my home state of Victoria. And we had another 6-month lockdown where I was not able to go more than 5 kilometers outside of my house and wasn't able to be outside for more than 2 hours. So it kind of in terms of going and getting involved in other things, you kind of couldn't. I did do the, I'll go do a half marathon and all that, kind of stuff initially, but then I kind of thought, well, let's actually start to use this as an opportunity rather than just kind of sitting around and just kind of, I think for me, and something that I have realized, I'm going through a lot of personal change as well, coming back to Melbourne, and it's really interesting. And I'm sure you found this too, but when things feel kind of out of control, I do kind of go back into that athlete identity. I was taking my gym training kind of seriously for a little bit, or trying to get myself those clear structures with physical activity, whether that's just doing yoga or I have to do it. And I kind of do catch myself if I'm Strava doesn't record properly and I'm angry that the run didn't count. I think it's just knowing that that you
You're
just have to
I
laugh at it. Yeah, that didn't happen. Yeah, I have to do it again.
That's so
So
funny. It just happened to me. I was in a
yeah,
class and my Apple Watch died, and I was like, "Well,
yeah.
Might
Yeah, I
as
may
well
as well
go
go.
home.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if you think about that, that's ridiculous. But it's also, but that's like, I think in terms of like self-soothing, right? Like it's better than drinking alcohol. It's better than doing drugs, or it's better than, you know, all these other things. And that's kind of, whenever I get myself in that state of like wearing more gym clothes or, like going back into this mode, I'm like, oh, why, like that's just kind of a cue to me. So I digress a little bit. But in terms of like what my new passions are, I think so much of it is like reframing training and practice into exercise. And that's actually something that's really healthy for me. But like this whole writing thing, like you were saying, like this has become something that I'm really passionate about. I'm really trying to like explore the more like creative side of myself. And I think that only comes when you let yourself get a little bit bored, or you're not filling so much time. So, and I've like really started to like enjoy like the music scene in Melbourne, but like yoga is something that I really enjoy as well, but all these other things. And I think what I'm trying to like get at is not having this one thing that's this like one dimensional part of my personality. Like I'm not trying to be, you know, accelerating my career like at an unsustainable rate. Cause I'm like, your career is just one part of you. Your social life is one part of you. Your physical like activity is one part of you. And I think that's been the biggest thing that I'm trying to unlock is like, I can't just be defined by one thing, which is as someone whose parents are also Olympic medalists and they're rowing coaches, like rowing is just like so deeply ingrained in my soul and my body that it's like, how do I know that I'll always be a rower, but I can explore other parts of myself? So that's kind of like, I know I've been done for 3 or 4 years now, but it's like kind of this like self exploration of like trying new things out and being okay to be bad at things, or it's just like it's just kind of, it's very an odd time, but I think it's it took us 15 years to get good at something. It's kind of now in that phase of exploring what else, but yeah, definitely more like kind of the creative side of things. And then I think also, how do you be a good alumni to the sport?
Mm.
And how do you be a supportive sports person but not want to like take someone's spot or not want to coach? Like, how do you wish them well, genuinely?
How do you do that to be an advocate in that space?
It honestly is really hard, and it's easy that I can look at an Olympic Games or a World Championship and I genuinely, confidently know that I'm not willing to do the work anymore. So I'm like, you have your moment, you have your time. I don't want to take your seat. Like, I know how hard it is and I'm not willing to do that anymore. And I have so much respect for the people that are, and I don't judge the people that still want to do it. But I spent after Tokyo kind of almost really divorced myself from the sport and didn't really have anything to do with it apart from a few speaking things. And, this writing piece has only kind of come to fruition in the last year. But I almost had to like really make a conscious effort to separate myself out, not necessarily all the people, but like not going down to like familiar environments. So I would do exercise, but not at the rowing club. And I was just like trying to really separate myself from it. But now coming back to it and doing a lot more speaking, and especially like kind of talking about my rowing story, I feel like I'm getting pulled back a little bit. And it's more kind of, you hear more of the politics that's happening and like things that haven't changed, or like these things that, and maybe not the best or different dynamics. And I actually, it's hard because I don't care, because I know that like I don't want to care either. I think it's
Mhm.
really, it's not my place to get involved anymore. But I think that I'm really trying to toe the line of how do I come in and be supportive unconditionally, but not really know the ins and outs of it enough to like get jaded by like things that haven't changed. So, and it is like something that I have to be very, very aware of because it is so familiar that I can like just kind of lock in. So yeah, it is difficult, but I'm finally feeling removed enough and like at peace with everything that I can come in and kind of know, okay, well, if I'm gonna just like dip my toe in, but if I get like can kind of feel these old habits coming through, I'm just gonna get myself out.
Yeah.
Um,
It's really interesting too, I think, just about those environments as well that are familiar and how quickly that can bring you right back into like
totally.
that space
Yeah,
that you're
totally.
trying to remove yourself from. And it goes, I think, with anything, right? When you're
Yeah,
trying to rewrite stories or like
yeah,
create this new narrative, that it's so important, at least I found this, to put myself in new environments so
Yeah.
that I'm rewiring,
Yeah.
in that way. So
Yeah, and I think that that's such a good way to it's like it is a complete rewiring, and I think fundamentally, even if you are someone that just says is an athlete that goes into coaching or high performance, but like understanding that your relationship within that world is different now. Like you are no longer an athlete, like you are now on the other side of this. And so don't bring your stuff from being an athlete into the people that are actually like on the water or on the court. And that's like the biggest thing for me is like, I know my position. Yes, I am one of the 7 gold medalist Olympic women in Australia, but I am no longer an active rower. I'm a retired rower that's removed, and I'm not a support staff, and I'm not a coach, and I'm not like on the, I'm not in it, but I know that I'm really in this world. So I think it is like rewiring your brain within the world of your sport, and then rewiring your brain of who you are within society, even though you're part of this and you are like completely tethered to this community, whether you like it or not. It is your decision of how much you want to be involved. Do you want to enjoy that, or do you want to be resentful? Do you want to be a positive or a negative influence? Like, I think that's what, like, the intricacies, and that's where I'm trying to sit with now. Especially going, I want to be a really good alumni of the sport. And if that means at times I take a step away and just let people have their moment, like I'm completely fine with that because I have enough going on in my own world now. But it is more of I have a choice rather than I'm obligated to.
I was just going to say that it's the choice that you have now to give it meaning,
Yeah.
however it aligns with where
Yeah.
you are in this
Totally.
stage.
Totally.
That I think is so freeing
Yeah.
and also could be challenging.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting being still quite close to it, like, because there's people that I competed with that are still in the Olympics and on the team now. But I also like, I have a whole group of friends that are now coaches and doing like, it's kind of this like full spectrum of like my place within this sport. And I'm just trying to be really curious about it because I think I've spent enough time away from it that I'm like, okay, I think I could have a positive impact there. But like, I also want to make sure it feels authentic and right for me, and like, maybe my role within that sport or like with sport in general actually doesn't exist yet. And I have to kind of like craft that to what,
Mm.
and I think that that's kind of where I'm heading now, where I think I started talking about my story like more actively, in the way that I've done it is because of like, okay, I think when you are an Olympic champion, you have like, won the game, you got to the end of the like computer game and you won it, like
Yeah,
there's no more.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, like you did it. You can exit
From
now.
now
And
on.
then, yeah. And I think, but like, because I can talk about the fact that I've had like performance anxiety, that I've had disordered eating, that I've kind of had all this other, that I've got let like relationships get in the way, like all these other things, but it doesn't actually detract. No one's going to come and take my gold medal away from me. And I think it's just showing that like you can be an imperfect human, but you can evolve and grow and like be open and honest with it, but that doesn't make you less than. And I think what I'm learning now in the corporate world, and I'm a management consultant now and going and doing my MBA, like I can also draw from these experiences of best practice of what good team dynamics are and what good leadership is and how to cultivate good cultures. And I almost am using my like the Tokyo experience of like, oh, that was actually like leading practice in how to be in a high performance team, and the relationship that we had our coach and what we did to actually get to what we achieved is like in like best practice literature. And I'm like, that's amazing. But we were just like doing this kind of organically with our coach into Tokyo. And now I kind of like have this real world experience. I'm really curious of like how to translate that into the real world, because I think that that's the amazing stuff that we can learn from sport.
I think that workplace culture piece is so important. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been through many different transitions in work environments and, um,
Yeah.
and just
That'll be another 2-hour conversation, I think. Yeah.
yeah, there's so much I think that translates from sport into that, what it takes for creating winning culture and working with one another. And so, what were some of the key differentiators within your experience at the Olympics, within your team, and what you built from a team culture perspective, and how that translates into real life now,
Yeah.
within work?
Yeah. For the biggest learning I reflect on for my Tokyo crew. So the Olympics were delayed 1 year, and we had a very in Australia, like before COVID even was a thing, we had like a lot of bushfires, and we had like a lot of actual natural disasters that were like impacting our training in the lead up to the year of COVID. So we had like a lot of disruption as is, and the crew that I was in, we'd actually never raced together internationally before, but we were the favorites to win. And then we also had two other people. So two women within my crew were also competing in another event. So we had to like balance our time of trying to get two medals out of like, two boat classes to experience. And I was, sorry, two boat classes to medal, but I was actually only in one. So like the goal was for the four of us to get two medals, even though I would only be competing in one. And I think what I learnt in that and the way that we navigated that was the importance of communication, which I know is like such a buzzword at the moment, but like not only communicating when things are good, but like when things are like really, really bad. And how do you like address them straight away, or not bad, but really, really challenging? And how do you be like open and honest and give and receive feedback really objectively, because you know that you're on the same team? And I think, a lot of workplaces and a lot of like high performing environments, or maybe people in like where people are very like conflict avoidant and don't receive and give feedback objectively. And I think in sport, like you would receive, like, if you're like, something's not working well, like your coach is gonna be like, that's not good enough, let's change it. And it's like so like in your face. And I think you learn how to do that really well and not take it personally at the kind of top level. And I think we did that really well. And I think what we did is that we like challenged ourselves so much, and also like got to know each other, not just as athletes, but like how do we emotionally respond or like physiologically respond to like good and bad stresses? How do we want to be supported when we're under pressure? How are we actually going to work together when things don't go well? And we like talked about that, and we also like committed to each other of what we would do to support one another. And I think, when you say that you're going to do something, but then you show each other that you're going to do it regardless if there's external pressure or not, it just creates this like unconditional like, buy-in. And I think like in workplaces, people are kind of just relying on other people doing good work, but we don't understand like the motivators behind why people want to do good work. And so I think that like that's a lot of the stuff that I'm working on in the work culture of how do we actually talk about positive workplace cultures, because I think that's like, okay, we're going to do some like good news stories, or we're going to do like, breakfasts once a week, but it's like, no, good cultures are feeling like you can actually be your authentic self at work, and being able to know what your role is in that team and feeling empowered to do that and supported. So that's kind of the main thing that like, and in terms of like being part of a good team culture. And then leadership is like a whole other kettle of fish, because I feel that people misinterpret what leadership and management is, and they think that it's the same thing, where I think it's actually like a completely like, how do you manage a group, or well, how do you actually lead a group is completely different in that as well.
And within that difference, not all leaders are managers. How do you see that? Because I think it's like from wherever position that you're at, you can lead from where you are. You don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily need that management
Mm-hmm.
title to be a leader in the
Totally.
workplace.
Yeah. I think kind of for an analogy that like a good athlete doesn't make a good coach, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And I think so much of the way that corporate structures are at the moment is like, if you're good at your role, you're going to get promoted. And then inherently, you're going to start getting direct reports, and you're going to start getting people that report into you. But you might just be really, really good at your job, but you don't want to manage.
Yeah.
You don't actually have that like inspirational thing. And so I know a lot in like startups in the tech world, they actually have like a pipeline of people that are really, really good at their job that actually just would be really bad leaders. But that's actually not like inhibiting their like career trajectory. But they've identified that like a lot of these like techie people just maybe don't have the people skills.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting kind of coming in to the corporate world from my lens. Like I'm in consulting, which is very people focused, but like I'm really overdeveloped in like some parts of my like leadership capabilities and stuff, but I haven't done like some of the 101s that happens when you start like as a graduate position. So you can lead from like bottom up, but I think it's like how do we understand people's strengths? Because I think in leadership, like you said, yeah, you can lead from wherever you are, but you also have to realize like to have leadership, you also have to have people that want to follow. And usually not everyone can be a leader. And I think that we have to understand that some people actually just want to do the work and be told what to do.
Totally.
But I also don't think that that's a bad thing because you don't want to have too many cooks in the kitchen. So it's like, let's identify that this is a strength for people and let's not hinder the ones that don't want to be a leader, but then like optimize them for their own strengths as well and set them up for success. So I know, for my personal career, like I love being like putting myself out there and kind of like being a leader and connecting people. But there was some people in my crew or like that in the crews that I've had for over the 15 years, they kind of just want to be led. And how do you like make them feel really empowered and let them embrace that? So I don't think anything's good or bad. It's just like, let's not think of things in such a binary way that like to be a good, to really be a good athlete or be a good person in corporate, like you have to be a good leader. Like I think that you could be the best version of yourself, but like understand what your position is within like what you're contributing to every team environment. And then that's kind of like setting a good example in itself.
That's so good. I love what you said about not being good or bad, because I think it's unfair because each of us, like you were saying earlier, have different motivators. And when we uncover that, we can lean on one another's strengths in that way, empower that person
Yeah.
because we have that context and we understand this is what drives them. This is what motivates them. This is how we're going to be able to effectively collaborate and bring, increased performance then at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day. But if we don't
Absolutely.
know that and understand that in one another, it's
Mm-hmm.
like you're saying, it's knowing your role on a team.
Yeah.
And in basketball, I think about that and, the 5 players on the court, and like everybody has a different role, a different position, and
Yeah.
everybody is
Exactly.
needed.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you're not gonna like get the point guard to sit and do the tip off jump at the start of the
Right.
game. And that doesn't mean that they're not a good point guard. You're not gonna get the center to like take the 3-pointer from I think it's easy to put it in sport context, right? Because it's like, okay, that person's 5'2" and they're not 6'8". Like let's set them up to a position where they're gonna succeed and not hinder them for things that are just outside of their capability or like just kind of something that's not their strength. And I think that it's easier said than done, but I think in like the workforce it's hard because it's not like a physical performance, right? Like we can't like overtly tangibly see the physical differences. And I think that takes a lot more self-awareness when we do come into the workforce of letting down your ego and being like, okay, I know I'm good at this, but I need help on that. And that doesn't mean that you're going to be bad or like that you're going to be fired, but that's actually being like, no, that's something that I want to work on. It's like if you're an athlete, like, oh, I need to get stronger in my upper body. I need to go in the gym. And I think it's like, that's kind of what I'm trying to really drill in the workforce is like, just because you have things to work on doesn't mean that you should have imposter syndrome or that you're not worthy of being there. Like, but what other things that you bring that are amazing traits that are like going to elevate other people. But I think that also comes with there's so many assumptions that are made that everyone knows that everyone else is amazing, where it's like, no, we have to actually like communicate it.
Yeah, 100%. I believe there's so many breakdowns in communication because of misunderstanding of one
Yeah,
another, because we're not
totally.
communicating. Like it's just this cycle where it's like,
Yeah.
I don't really think it takes too much, to understand one another if we're
Mm-hmm.
willing to go there and learn. I think the work is so important. So I love that, you're bringing your own, experience, expertise and real life, from sport into that to help teams, because I think there is so much that is transferable. When you put it in sports terms, it's easy to understand, I think.
Yeah. It's just putting it in ways that I think when you kind of use analogies, it can be really powerful because I think that like something kind of from this like athlete world into real world is like if you have unresolved things in the sport world, I think sometimes we like have the tendency to shut that door and not want to think about it. And that's really sad because like we've spent so much of our life and time doing that. And this is something that I'm personally coming to terms with is like, you can't just shut a door and just get on to the next chapter, but like, how do we keep, kind of looking through the window and be like, okay, I'm not there anymore, but what did I learn, or some of the good and the bad things? But I think like, a lot of us leave sport not on the best terms. And I think that there's actually like, let's call a spade, like there's a lot of trauma associated. And I think, something that I'm working through is, there's some things that I go in and I'm like, I actually get like triggered by something, and then makes me shut down, but I'm really trying to like not let that get in the way of trying again. And I think that's what is not really talked about in like the post-athlete life is like, there's actually, we don't really want to like label it, but I think there is trauma, good or bad. It's just, it is being okay to like live and sit with that. And, it's almost like if you were in the military, like maybe there's PTSD, there's all these other things, but like as soon as we label it and normalize it, we can work through it and be like, that doesn't make you a good or bad person, but like, you've gone through something really, really extreme. And I think with the sport world, like in rowing or Olympic Games, like the idea is higher, faster, stronger. You're pushing your body to such a limit and you're like going at such an unsustainable pace. You're going against like natural body, the normal functioning of life. And I think even like if you're a D1 athlete or a really high performing like high school, like there's things that like expediting the normal rhythm of your development. And what comes with that is if you're overdeveloping some things, I think there's an underdevelopment in other things. And then think in this transition period of times, like how do we actually like let the underdeveloped things kind of start to mature? And I think that comes with facing some things that are really uncomfortable to think about.
It's like it opens up space for all of that other stuff to come
Totally.
that didn't have the space before, because it's almost like this breaking up with the sport in a way, or like
Mm-hmm.
redefining what that relationship looks like, kind of going
Mm-hmm.
back to the top of the conversation of like being retired from the sport, but now like how do you stay within the space and what does that relationship
Mm-hmm.
look like? I feel like it was at least for me, I'm like, it feels like such a grieving process in a way,
Mm.
because you're giving so much to that. I mean, in my
Mm-hmm.
journey, I had the goal to play Division 1. It was like on that elite circuit with all my teammates who were getting these major D1 offers. They were playing there, playing in the league, going overseas. My path looked a little bit different. And so it
Mm.
was like navigating all of that and then coming to the point where you're actually like, I'm done playing. 10, 15 years of like, what, like, it's just you're in this space, and I still feel like I go through it. I mean, I catch myself in these times where I'm back in the environments. I've been playing a lot of paddle recently,
Mm.
and like finding myself in that. I had a shoulder injury 2 years ago, and it's just this like kind of just keeps showing up in different forms in different
Yeah.
ways, just redefining like what this relationship looks like. But it's not a bad thing. So I'm also trying to like tune into that as well too,
Mm-hmm.
finding these parts that like actually do make me really feel alive in the sport, and not
Totally.
just like putting myself in a box and being like, well, that was just like, so
Yeah.
it's
Oh
an
my gosh, it's
ongoing.
exhausting. Yeah.
It's an
Yeah. No,
ongoing, which is why
totally.
which is why, Rosie, I'm again like so grateful to have this conversation with you and connect with you, because it's in I feel like, sometimes I don't always have the language to articulate the things that I'm going through and that I experience. And going and reading, your reflections in that way, it's like you're putting so much language to my own experience, and it's in different contexts and different, season. And like I said,
Thank
I
you.
can't relate to being an Olympic champion, but I can relate to these other parts in the transitions and stepping into the unknowns and discomforts and stretching areas. And
Yeah.
so that's so powerful. And I
Thank you so
greatly
much.
appreciate it. And it helps me in my own journey today.
Means so much. No, thank you. It means so much. And I think ultimately, like, I think my goal at the moment is like just to make people feel seen and make people just like know that they're not alone. And it's really interesting because I've got like a lot of friends in like the medical field or people that are in law or people that are like really high performing, like even the NBA, like that was, 350 people from 75 different countries, all on their different journey. What I realize is like, I think if you're someone that's driven and someone that's kind of willing to kind of really explore yourself, but also do amazing things, like whatever that quality is of, always kind of, I'm calling it like a level of agitation that you're like, okay, well, like, I want to do this, but like, is that enough? Or like, you're kind of always pushing the limits. Like, I kind of wish sometimes that I was like, I wish I was just a complacent person that could do my 9 to 5 and then like just go home, It's an acceptance piece that that's never going to happen. And I think like the more that I talk about them, like there's so many people out there that feeling the exact same thing, whether that's you're a doctor, whether that's you're a, you're starting a startup of a fintech in Africa. Like it's like we all feel the same, but I think a lot of us feel like really alone doing it. So thank you so much because it does mean a lot. And I think for anybody listening that feels the same, like I think the more that you talk about it or like ask questions, you're gonna find that like the right people that you surround yourself with are not going to like judge you. And that's been kind of another big thing of the last 4 years of being very conscious of the people that I spend my time with. Because if I open up and be vulnerable and I feel judged for it, my innate thing is like now at that point, be like, okay, well, I'm just not going to tolerate feeling less than with people around me, and I don't want to feel judged for being who I am. And I think that there needs to be an acceptance piece for like being okay to let people go, but not in like a bitchy way of being like, I wish you all the best, but that makes me not really feel like the full version of me. And I think even with sport, I had to really lean heavily into this kind of really sporty, always doing mindset. And I kind of don't want to be in that mode all the time. Like I kind of want to be more observant. I kind of want to be a bit more intuitive and more calm and not have my like just because I can have my cortisol levels at the highest thing all the time doesn't mean that I want to do that anymore. I know I can go there, but I don't want to. And I think that just is like, who are the type of people that like that you can feel calm and safe around? And then it's like, okay, I can have these conversations.
And I think that goes back to also like choosing into that, right? Where you're like,
Yeah.
I know that I can go to this level, but I'm making that
Mm,
conscious choice,
yeah.
for the alternative. And that's that just being in tune with yourself and aligning with yourself and
Yeah.
recognizing even just what your own needs are and
Mm,
like showing up for yourself. That's
yeah.
something that I've been trying to also really be more aware of like my
Mm,
own capacity and like to
mm-hmm.
your point about the people that you're spending time with and what it is that you are consuming from people and
Mm-hmm.
is this serving me, and I'm
Exactly.
going to choose into what is serving me. And I'm also then going to be able to give that out as well because I'm being filled up in that way. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so good and such a wise approach. And I appreciate that. It's a reminder, I think, too, to check in with yourself in
Mm-hmm.
those ways.
Yeah. And I think like I can't remember who told me once was like the person that you spend the most amount of time with in your life is you. So it's like learn how to really like being in your own company, and that, I think being alone and lonely are two completely different things. But how do you actually fill your own cup up and like kind of show up for yourself every single day that you're not relying on other people to like make you feel good about yourself? And I think that that was like when I was at the top of our conversations and I was talking about, just genuinely showing up for yourself. I think I used to really seek a lot of external validation that things were good enough. Like if I did something, I'd look over my shoulder and be like, was that good? And
Mm,
instead of having that confidence being like, you know what, like, especially with throwing, like you kind of rely on other people to like feed that energy off, and it's like no, like, that was good enough, and that was up to the standards that I set for myself. And I think that from there the type of people that you surround yourself with, I've kind of all done that work as well, and you're kind of just like complementary, like little puzzle pieces coming together, but you're not leaning on each other so heavily that if that person goes, like your whole world falls apart, or like your whole sense of worth. So it's like I think that's from like being a good athlete and not, being taken advantage of in the system or by coaching or other teammates, but also in life, like in relationships. So it's like but everyone's super different, and that's just something that works for me. Like I know some of my friends in romantic relations, they really like being codependent on their partner, and that's not something that works for me. But like I can't say that it's good or bad. That's what fills their cup up. So it's like this is very much my opinion and what works for me, but not judging other people for what they want or need as well. Just knowing that maybe where you are in each other's life might shift.
for sure. I love that coming back to self. And I think it's a question that I've been asking and it's, do you trust you? And it's
Mm,
because of the times where I think there's so much influence everywhere and so many opinions, and it's like looking for certain validation in different places. You have your own experiences. You've learned so much along the way, and coming back to that and just making decisions that are in alignment at that time without knowing what the outcome is going to be on the other side, and
exactly.
can we still move forward in that.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that does come with just life experience and maturity as well. Like, I couldn't have sat here 4 years ago and had this conversation because I like needed to explore. And like, I think, for post Tokyo, I like had a year of yes that I was like, I'm just going to do, like, I've had to say no to so many things. I just said yes to everything, which is like, it like really puts you in some funky situations that was like some amazing, some a bit sticky, whatever. But like, I was just kind of like a year of yes, let's just do it. And then as I've kind of had enough life experiences and doing all these things, I can start to say no to things. So I kind of are viewing it like a big funnel, right? They're like, I think in our like teens and 20s and like early 30s, you kind of just like starting. And I think, in 10 years time, I might completely think about this completely different. But like my theory at the moment is like we're collecting experiences and then we've kind of like come and we've kind of been here before and to some extent of certain experiences and be like, okay, I can say no to that now. Or like I want to go this way now and I can iterate. And I think that only comes with just seeing things and doing things and trying things differently, because then you can say, I'm making this decision not just because and kind of going with it, but like you kind of have your whys. Like, okay, so like, because last time I was here, that didn't really feel that right. So I'm going to try it this time. And I think as I'm going through, my mid 30s now, that I'm like, okay, I've done this before. Like, I'm going to say no to that now and I'm going to be okay with it. But it's so difficult, because I think we are faced with like limitless opportunities, but we only have finite amount of time. And I think what it comes down to is like, if you go with it, just don't look over your shoulder of like the sliding doors moment of like what could have been, is like, okay, well, this is me now. Like, I'm just going to be authentic in that and like learn along the way.
Yeah, that is something I think can rob us so much. I think how often in just in my own process where depending on how something went, I catch myself going back to the like, if I would have just done this thing differently, or like if I wouldn't have went there, if I would have done this. But you only know what you know at that time. And so
Exactly.
you if you don't have all the information at the time, but now you do. And so now
Mm,
moving forward, I can choose differently in this because of
exactly.
this learning that I have.
Yeah.
And so not beating yourself up and really having that self-compassion, I
Yeah.
think that's been such a journey.
But it's no, thank you for being so vulnerable, because I think like so many people feel that, and I just think that heard this quote the other day. It's like, the world is like the biggest teacher, but are you willing to learn the lessons? Like the world will keep putting you in those positions until you learn the lesson that you do it. And it's like, I remember having this like situation once that like the kind of same result. It was like this cyclical, like things just kept happening. And I was like, no, you actually have to put your foot in the ground. And like, I've learned this and like, I've been faced with this lesson so many times now. Like, am I actually going to go and do something and learn the lesson? But I think that it just takes like confidence to actually be like, okay, I'm going to do something a little bit differently now. People don't like change and people don't like to be comfortable. And I think sometimes people put up with things because they know usually what the result was going to be. And I think that's why people stay in shitty jobs and shitty relationships and miserable in their sport, is because they kind of know what the outcome is going to be. And it's scarier to actually like take that chance and maybe look a bit silly and fall on your face. But like, then I think it's actually like, what are you actually defining success on? The outcome, or like the fact that you're like actually trying something new?
So good. It's like I think about one of my favorite books is The Creative Act by Rick Rubin.
Oh my gosh, it's like my baby. Yeah, it's
And I
so
just like,
amazing.
gosh, it's so good because it's just like so much of, going through our processes and detaching from the outcomes and just all of that. I just feel like, yes. And having that courage to step into those spaces, even talking about saying in jobs that are bad situations, it's like, that it's not, this isn't right, but there's that comfort in the familiarity. So I'm going to stay in it
Mm-hmm.
anyways. And I'm going to show up and
Yeah.
be miserable. And I'm going to just do this on repeat. Or
Mm,
you can choose to step into something that is uncomfortable, that is different, unknown, but it's like
exactly.
you're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's hard because like we're in this space, right? Like you're creating conversations for these amazing people. Like Rick Rubin is like, worth how many millions and billions of dollars and done amazing things. And I'm a gold medalist. I can imagine there will be a lot of people being like, well, that's easy for you to say because of XYZ. But I think there's actually a merit in that, of like the people that think like this and like they've kind of detached themselves from the outcome, and the outcome has come to them in a beautiful way. I remember when I wanted to go to the Olympics in 2016, my definition of success was getting to the Olympics. and I missed out because I injured myself because I'd overtrained and I had rib fractures, like, but then as soon as I came back, I was like, I'm just going to show up and be the best version of myself every single day and like improve every day. And then all of a sudden I was getting in better crews. I was surrounding myself with better people. Like there's a real merit in like, and I genuinely got to the Olympics and I was like, we're going to do what we did in training because in training we were breaking world records. Like that was the fact. And I was like, okay, so I'm not going to do anything different now. I'm going to like going into the Olympics so confident, like, oh, I'm just going to do what I already did because you've done the work early. Like you're not stepping up to competition. You're falling back on your training.
Mm.
And I think like people kind of be like, I'm just going to wing it in these like big presentation moments. It's like that is like, I think Matthew McConaughey's Green Light books, like I know
Yeah,
whatever, but I think he has like this amazing thing where like, he talked about being really, really prepared because there's like this amazing story that like he was so arrogant when he was younger that when he like was going up and then the whole audition was in Spanish and he was like, oh, well, he hadn't read the script. He's like, no matter how good you are, if you don't know Spanish, you can't be good in this role. And I think like I've experienced a lot, I think, of people being like, what do you know? You're a gold medalist. So like, it's easy for you to say, but it's like, firstly, you have to thank people for like saying those kind of things. And like, okay, well, that's maybe someone that I don't want to surround myself with. I think it gave me the confidence that this is just like the way I can't be attached to outcomes because there's so many things outside of our control that like, if I was hell bent on the Olympics has to happen in 2020, I probably would have burnt myself out and not being able to push that extra year of doing 2 Olympic years back to back. But I was like, okay, well, we're delayed now. Let's just start again. And I think it like creates almost like this moat between the stress. Like, you don't have to go straight into that reactive mode. You can absorb the information that you're getting it and then respond and not be reactive to like whatever's happening around you.
there's so much more I think that you can gain in that
Mm,
by having that open posture just in the process where it's
totally.
like you discover so much more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I at least find that in all of the ways when I detach. Like this
Mm-hmm.
whole podcast, when I started, it was because I struggled so much with performance pressure that I was like,
Mm,
can I enter a process where I surrender the outcome? Literally, I wouldn't
good on
allow
you.
myself to do it. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing in this space. I've always had an insecurity within communication, and
Mm,
like you build confidence by doing. You put yourself
absolutely.
in the space. It's uncomfortable.
It's so uncomfortable, but like no one has any idea what they're doing. Like I remember at my MBA, like no one has any idea. One of my friends who was like a really successful corporate person in New York. I think she worked at JP Morgan or something. And she's like, corporate America is held up by like 22-year-old interns. It's like no one knows what they're doing. And it's funny and it's like, but it's like life is ridiculous and it's like, okay, well, I think it's just actually shedding that like fear of, looking silly and like good on you for, I think it is just, you've got to practice it because I think like I was, like my writing, it's been really interesting, my own personal journey because I was really hesitating and like I've never been active on social media and I still kind of like don't know how to do it that well. But like I was kind of like, because I've been a really adaptable athlete my whole time, like I was able to kind of like be put in any situation and just make it work. But I think as soon as you actually have a viewpoint on something, which you have to have when you write, you're inherently going to actually have some people that disagree with you. And it wasn't like I wanted to be liked by everyone, but like that's actually going against one of my own superpowers, which is being really adaptable. But by being so adaptable, you actually have no opinion because you're kind of like a master of none. So like this has been a really big process for me is like I actually have a viewpoint on things and I'm not going to be like, yeah, I'll do that. No worries. It's like, no, this is what I believe in now. And these are my non-negotiables. And so this writing piece has like been hugely impactful because like I was really hesitating for a long time, but it's like, well, this is what I believe in. And I think there's like, whether people listen to it or not, or read it or not, like it's hugely cathartic for me. And I've just have to like, I'm similar to you that it's like, I can't look at like the statistics of how many likes something got or how many people read because it's like at the end of the day that doesn't matter because you're like our boy Rick Rubin talks about like create for the sake of creating.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I love that so much. I think about one of your recent, I think it was a few weeks ago when you shared just about consistency. And I think you were talking about that
Mm.
you got sick.
Yeah.
and still showing up to the space and writing. And it's almost like in that way where it's like the things that are convincing you to not show up to that
Hmm.
space, but still continuing to. And really, too, in that, it's like nobody can take that from you. Just like no one can take your gold medal and no one can take your
Mm.
story. No one can take all the things that are uniquely yours. And
Hmm.
all we can do is put our offer on the table, and how somebody receives that is on them. And I think there's so much freedom in that. I think that's why we keep showing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My gosh, this is such a nice conversation start to it. Yeah, no,
No,
it's
I appreciate you being here, really
we can
appreciate
do a
it.
take two.
I would love it. I've been so excited to connect, and again, really just grateful for you joining me in this space and having these conversations and allowing it to go where it went.
Yeah, and this was wonderful. No, thank you. It's when what you're doing is amazing, and like I think it's just such a testament for you to like keep showing up and doing all those things. So hopefully you're really proud of yourself too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, I again love everything that you're putting out there and sharing. And I think the impact goes far beyond or that you'll ever see. And there's a ripple
Thank you.
effect in that because it's people like myself who are consumers of your reflections, your content that
Mm.
you put out, that it sparks conversations with others in those ways.
Oh
And it's
wow.
like that goes far beyond. And so
Thank you.
yeah, I encourage you. I mean, not that you need my encouragement to keep
No, it
showing
mean
up,
I there's yeah, no,
but
it means
keep
so
showing
much.
up
Yeah.
and sharing and know that, yeah, it's greatly valued, and yeah, really thankful for your voice. So
Thank you,
thank you.
Ashley. Yeah, and I think I had someone reach out. It's like you're making me think of things that I haven't thought of in 25 years, and
Mm,
I was like, holy cow, And
yeah,
it's like, okay, this is important to talk about. So hopefully, someone like you, I think we're probably similar age. It's like, okay, if we're talking about this now, a few years after finishing, but like, how soon can we have this conversation, even when people are athletes or people in the moment? So like, you're not suppressing that like sense of freedom 40, 50 years down the track. Like that's kind of the stuff that,
so good.
if that impacts one person, then like that's a success for me.
For sure. I love
Yeah,
it.
cool.
Thanks
Cool.
so much, Rosie.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you being here.
That was so fun. Thanks, Ashley.